Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something completely fascinating. We are unlocking the hidden mechanics of human communication and ancient texts. Have you ever wondered if we're just entirely missing the point when we debate ancient scriptures? Well, today we're looking at a framework that rebuilds meaning from the ground up rather than just projecting our modern assumptions backward. Let's see how this approach literally changes the way we read history's most debated texts. So let's just jump right in with a pretty massive question. Why on earth do people constantly argue over translated religious words? I mean, we hear terms like God, Messiah, or a son in English, and we just immediately assume we know exactly what they mean. But what if the people arguing aren't even talking about the same concepts? What if our modern translations have accidentally erased the entire original architecture of these ancient languages? Picture this. Imagine you've got three different families, and each family has a beloved recipe called Grandma's Special Cake. Family 1 makes a chocolate cake, Family 2 makes a lemon cake, and Family 3 makes a cinnamon cake with a frankly terrifying amount of butter. Now a translator comes along, slaps the basic English label special cake on all three, and suddenly everyone is out in the parking lot screaming at each other because the ingredients just don't match. Now, the grandmas didn't lie. The translators simply flattened three entirely different multidimensional concepts into a single confusing English label. Section 1. Meaning comes from usage. Context over definitions. Take a look at this quote from the linguist James Barr, who's pictured right here in St. Cecilia's Church. It reminds us of something absolutely crucial. The etymology, meaning the historical origin of a word, is not a statement about its current meaning. It's really just a statement about its history. We simply can't let a word's ancient past overrule how a speaker is actively using it in a sentence today. Building right on Barr's argument, we have to avoid falling into what's known as the etymological fallacy. You just can't project modern ideas, or even ancient root origins, backwards and force them into texts without any solid evidence. Think about it. A word doesn't function like a compressed encyclopedia that carries every single historical definition simultaneously every single time it's written down. Ultimately, it all boils down to this one vital rule. The meaning of a word is determined by its usage. If we actually want to know what a word means in Hebrew, Greek, or Arabic, we have to look really closely at its relational network. What other words surround it? What's the grammar doing? What is the actual context of the passage? Meaning is always found in that network of relations. Section 2. Recognition before doctrine. Seeing versus knowing. You know, recognizing a concept is entirely different from just slapping a doctrinal name onto it. We need to define recognition as an active, multi-channel reconstruction of identity. It is not just passively seeing something. Think of Mary Magdalene at the tomb in the Gospel of John. She physically sees Jesus right in front of her, but she thinks he's the gardener. The visual object is 100% present, but the recognition doesn't happen. It's only when he actually speaks her name that the relational pattern clicks for her. The referent itself didn't change. Her access to recognizing his identity changed. Let's make this dense theory a bit more accessible. Imagine your teacher shows up to school wearing sunglasses, a giant winter coat, and a huge, highly suspicious floppy hat. You see a person standing there. Your eyes work just fine, but you might not actually recognize her until she does something familiar, like, say, writing your exact name on the board or giving the class that specific no recess for you look. You only recognize the teacher when you connect the brand new appearance with a relational structure you already know. Section 3, the corpus first method, rebuilding meaning. So what's the fix? It's called the corpus first method, and it's the solution to our translation problem. It ensures we don't jump to wild conclusions or declare doctrinal contradictions before we actually look at the underlying linguistic evidence of the text themselves. Think of it like three detectives at a crime scene. Detective 1 sees a banana peel on the floor and screams, "A monkey did it." Detective 2 sees a muddy footprint and yells, "No way, it was a pirate." But Detective 3 actually reads the note left on the table that says, "I knocked over the vase. Love, Grandma." A good detective reads the evidence instead of blaming a pirate monkey just because it sounds cooler. The corpus first method is Detective 3. It always reads the evidence first. And here is exactly how this method works in 4 logical sequential steps. Step 1. You start with the original corpus, the actual Hebrew, Greek, or Arabic text. Step 2, you look at the local semantic field and the grammar. Step 3, you reconstruct the relational structure of the word based entirely on how it's used in context. And only then, step 4, you move to cross-corpus comparison,
We are literally rebuilding meaning from the inside out. Looking at this incredibly detailed methodology roadmap, you can clearly see the neutral, step-by-step preservation of these ancient structures. By systematically moving from the initial corpus collection all the way down to the genealogical evaluation, this framework prevents premature genealogical conflicts. We don't start with what we already believe, we begin strictly with what is actually preserved in the texts. Section 4. Rethinking Creation and Sonship, Beyond Modern English. Now let's see what happens when we apply this objective method to two highly debated words, create and son. Consider this quick analogy about making a bedroom. If someone asks who made your bedroom, it's not a simple one-word answer, right? I mean, someone built the physical walls, someone painted them, someone placed the furniture, and someone else entirely is doing the continuous daily maintenance of removing your dirty coffee cups. Well, creation in ancient scripture is exactly like this. It isn't just pushing a cosmic on button and walking away. It involves bringing forth, forming, naming, arranging, and then continuously sustaining reality. When we compare these two paradigms side by side, the difference is pretty wild. On the left side, the modern English word create often implies just manufacturing a finished object and being done with it. But on the right, the ancient Hebrew, Greek, and Arabic texts use incredibly multidimensional verbs. They describe bringing forth, ordering, appointing, measuring, holding together, and sustaining. It is an ongoing, continuous, active relationship. It's not just a one-time construction project. And we see this exact same kind of compression happening with the word son. In modern English, son almost exclusively implies biological reproduction or offspring. But looking at the original ancient grammars on the right, we find these incredibly rich, non-biological relational origins. The texts speak of source, covenant, authority, likeness, representation, and being a royal agent. By reconstructing this, we can maintain strict neutrality on the theological doctrines themselves, while still clearly seeing that these scriptures were using a massive relational grammar that English simply doesn't capture on its own. Section 5. The True Rosetta Stone. Unlocking Ancient Texts. Ultimately, understanding this linguistic architecture changes absolutely everything about how we approach interfaith dialogue and comparative theology. Think back to our teacher in the floppy hat. When we debate religion today, are we just arguing over translated labels like cake or sun? Or are we totally failing to recognize the much deeper referent hidden beneath the hat? It makes you wonder, perhaps our most bitter modern debates are simply misunderstandings of ancient multidimensional languages that were, all along, trying to point us toward the exact same relational structures. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the right questions.